Cool. Well, we're here, my man. I appreciate you first and foremost. This is the inaugural. This is the first ever Call Your Own Shots podcast, man. This is a long time coming for myself. Obviously we talked about the shot callers and just that platform being the authentic media platform for sports culture and entertainment. And the reason why I wanted to start the podcast was one, to give people that I know as colleagues, as friends, in and around the sports and entertainment industry, their flowers, and also allow them to, set the platform for what they do, all the great stuff that they've done in and around the industry, and also educate the next generation of people that, young men and women that are looking up to us and that are interested in getting to the sports and entertainment industry. So of course, first episode, we working through all the kinks, man. We're working through all the technical difficulties, but we back. So just to kick it back off again, Jamel Torrence, appreciate you for jumping on. Obviously you're the social media strategist and content manager for the NBA2K League. A quick rundown on a bio about you. You're an experienced content strategist, with developing creative, social, and content strategy. So obviously a wealth of experience there that goes into that and to your role right now. But first and foremost, want to thank you again for jumping on. But
appreciate you for having me. First guest.
No,
I feel honored. I'm humbled by that, so I appreciate that.
I had to keep it with the home team, man. I had to, get New York on here first. So all good, man. So, first and foremost, let's kick it off, man. I talked a little bit about the shot callers and, what this brand platform is meant to do and inspire for the next generation of, sports industry professionals. But, super curious for you to share with the people, listeners and viewers, if you could just dive a little bit to your background, where you're from, really kind of how you stumbled into the industry and really how you identify your passion within sports and entertainment. That'd be great, man. And we'll keep it rolling from there.
Yeah. As you mentioned, I'm born and raised New York. I grew up in Brooklyn and Harlem. I claim both. I spent weekdays going to school in Brooklyn, and every weekend I was taking the train to Harlem, staying at my pop's crib. So both environments really kind of helped raise me and honed who I am today. And yeah, I think I had a very unique upbringing where having that dual, I guess, kind of background where I get to grow up in the gritty and griminess of Brooklyn at times in the early 2000s, but also having some of that Harlem flair and culture kind of also inspire me. And it was nice because when I lived in Brooklyn, when I was staying in Brooklyn with my mom's, that's really my Hispanic side. So, that's a whole different background than from when I go to Harlem. That was my black side. That's my family in Harlem up there. So again, another dual aspect to just who I am. And I think what helps balance me out in everything I do. So yeah, my pops, I grew up in a basketball family and my pops was a ball player. So naturally that just kind of passed down to me, grandparents, uncles, pops, me. Now my little brother's a hooper. So that is kind of what kind of really shaped my experience growing up, going to AAU tournaments, playing local ball. Everything I did was revolved around sports, basketball specifically. So going to school, even going to boarding school, specifically going to a boarding school for basketball. So everything I did, trying to, play at the next level, play in college, everything revolved around how to get better at the game, and then what opportunities could sports provide me so that I wasn't just a kid, in the neighborhood who didn't have anything to do or was just growing up getting into the wrong things. So yeah, sports really shaped everything I did. And then so much so that it taught me so many lessons that I think I take through with myself today, in the work environment, how to work in a team, work with other people, understanding different personality types, understanding when to lead and when to be a follower and take a step back. So yeah, sports really just kind of encouraged everything I did today.
No, that's a fact. And you touched on something real quick too about boarding school and having that shape you, to a certain extent as well. And obviously, I'm a boarding school, alum as well. So playing sports was a thing, and that changes your trajectory in terms of what you want to learn in college or what you want to pursue in school as well. Can you briefly just touch on, kind of how that shaped, your desire to kind of be in sports as well?
Yeah, I mean, easily, it was pretty easy for me. I knew I didn't want to be a coach like my pops. but I knew I wanted to stay around the game, right? Like I knew I didn't want to wake up every weekend, be in a gym, coaching basketball. Like I did that in my whole first life. And I was like, but how can I stay around the game and do something? You know, everyone always says like you don't feel like you're working if you're doing something you really enjoy. And I knew that for me, it meant I had to be around sports in some way. And while I was in college, I was kind of tapping into my creativity and realizing like, oh, I think I could be in content. I think I could be in storytelling. I think I'd be in writing. So originally I thought I'd be a film writer, was working on writing scripts, had some sports ideas. And then I thought for me, my way into that was like, all right, film is the highest part of like creating content. Like, what is the way in? What is the door in? Like, what is the first step? If I don't have the, necessary background in film, because I didn't go to a film school, like how can I start to make content? So immediately to me, that meant like, oh, social media is this thing. I was in college. 2012 was my freshman year I started. So like social media, Instagram is really starting to bubble. It's not really a video platform yet. But I started to realize like, oh, there's different things you can do on YouTube. There's different things you can do social media to create content. And this could be a step for me to sort of like maybe get into that world. Maybe I can write a series and put it on YouTube and digitally, or put it on Twitter. And maybe that'll help me build my resume or portfolio that one day I can write a whole feature film that someone could, want to make or produce one day. So for me, it was like that simple.
Yeah, no, that's dope, because you hear some stories about like people that, before they got their big break, they, were writing, or maybe they would shoot stuff on YouTube. Issa Rae is known for, talking about a lot of her series that were on YouTube before she obviously made it to HBO and made a killing doing that.
Right.
Some things that she was doing, obviously at the height of social media, when it was coming up, when it was bubbling, that you were, getting your hands on it, just getting either easy wins, or just getting exercise and reps and doing stuff and finding out how things work with these platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because like initially I wasn't getting any wins. Like it was hard, right? Like I was like, and I think everyone probably experiences like you trying to get an internship, you trying to do content, like, and everyone's saying no, like, where's your experience, right? And like you just keep getting knocked down. So like the first thing I did, I was like, you know what, no one's gonna give me experience. Like I'm gonna just create my experience. And so I went to my dad and I was like, yo, like you run it, like he's a high school basketball coach. So I was like, yo, I'll run the social media for your basketball team. Like, and he was like, all right. So like I started creating content around like their highlights, their games, their schedule, practices, player profiles, like different things like that. Like, you know what, like I want to get into the social media world and get some internship experience. This might be a way for me to do that. So I kind of did that early on for a couple of years. And then I remember I have a really good friend who's a college basketball player at the time. And I was like, yo, he played Division III at SUNY Marathon in the Bronx. And I was like, yo, I want to do like a little bit of a video profile on you. He was like the best player on his team. And I knew it'd be just an opportunity for me to like just create a portfolio, a profile of my work. And he was like, I bet. And like he just had this triple-double in a game like after I spoke to him, and it was like perfect. Like he had the highlights to it. And then I just sat him down, did like a little bit of interview, and we did like a small like documentary style video in like 3 to 5 minutes or whatever it may have been. And then I would just kind of use that to send to people like, yo, like this is what I could do, but I'm willing to learn so much more. So like I just put this together to show people. And then I was just hungry, to be honest. Like I would try to get an internship wherever, experience with whoever. So I'm 2014, like someone tweeted, I need a production assistant. I literally just replied to them or DM'd them. Someone was like, yo, I'll do it. Like, I'll just come. I didn't know this person. I don't know where this tweet came from. And like, the craziest thing is like, they replied and was like, bet, pull up like the next day. And it ends up being Creative Control TV. I'm not sure if you heard of Creative Control TV, but if you haven't, they produced the Kanye West documentary on Netflix. They produced the Muhammad Ali documentary on HBO. And this was a couple years before that stuff came out, right? Like, so like, and they used to work with Dame Dash. They actually shot the Jesus Walks music video. So like, for me, it was just like that. I learned so much, like just being like, yo, I'm gonna be hungry. I'll work whatever. Like that, I saw a tweet and was like, I'm gonna go after it. And like, I just got to work with those guys and kind of sit with them in a production studio and learn some of the things that they was doing.
So you literally was, the tagline for Shot Calls obviously is call your own shots, but you took that in the hustler's mentality of being from New York and also just taking what was around you, the tools that were around you, the connection that you had to do that. And, literally we're connecting the dots and shooting your shot with different opportunities. But, you were able to use what you had around you to kind of put together your own, personal documents and portfolio and stuff like that too. When we talk about, kind of like the cold calling or like the reaching out to people as well, what was kind of your approach to that? Like, did you have any nuance to it? Did you kind of go in there with the lead, like a script or something like that? You copy and paste it to everybody? Or is it like, yo, I'm sending my portfolio to everybody. If I don't hear back, I don't care. I'm gonna send it to the next person. What was that like?
Yeah, honestly, like I was so young, I didn't have like a real good method to it. Like I just and it comes from like also like I didn't have anyone who was trying to be in the corporate industry whatsoever. Like my dad's a dean, my mom works at a school as well, like and has worked in the office, but never like in the like I'm trying to climb the corporate ladder. So like I had no one who can tell me like how does this work? Like I was just like I'm gonna apply to as many internships at every company as possible. I'm gonna send my resume. I'm a sign up for LinkedIn. I'm a send people messages and like if I'm sure if I like went back and looked at some of those messages, I would probably cringe at like what I was saying or how I was phrasing some of that stuff. But like I was just so like raw and like I just didn't know what way to go about it. I just knew that like if I kept knocking on the door at some point, like the door's gonna fall down and I'm gonna figure out like I knew like if I just got one opportunity, like I was gonna keep going. Like it was no way that I was gonna stop at like a no. You know what I mean? Like so honestly, no method to the madness, but I think it was just more about being relentless and trying to figure out like, can I get one person to just say yes, right? And that's all I kind of needed.
Because really all you do is get into the door, and then it doesn't have to be a forever opportunity, but it's an opportunity right now that you can take advantage of. You kill it, you keep going, you finesse, you make it connections, you make it, you build your network, and then you're off to the next thing. So a lot of, what you did is a lot, what folks need to do now that are trying to get into the industry, trying to pivot. They feel like they might be stuck or stagnant right now in one particular, role or opportunity. You got to keep shooting your shot because a no is not really a no. It's just maybe not right now. It's a closed door, but you got to keep opening them up.
Nah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of those no's made me hungrier. And maybe some of those no's were like, it probably wasn't the right fit. Like I might have did an internship just to do it. And like, who knows that would have like sent me down a path of like, not even in a bad way, just like thinking things differently, right? Like maybe getting all those no's made me like hungrier to want to do things. Like you think about like, again, I said everything I relate back to sports, but like you think about like all the guys who play in the NBA who are second round draft picks, Draymond Green, who like, I think about, they can name every guy in front of them who was drafted. Like, what if Draymond was drafted top 10? He might have not been as hungry, like, or whatever that second round pick, like that helps. So I think that just kind of helped me have a chip on my shoulder or just say like, I'm here. Like, I know how hard I work to be here. Like, I can't let that opportunity go.
Facts. I mean, you never know what, how life works, what's working on in the background between it. I tell this story to, my students and just anyone that's interested in, how to get into the industry. But after I got out of grad school at Georgetown, I'm thinking I'm hot shit. I'm thinking I'm going to fall right into something. I got this, I got my undergrad degree. I got a little bit of experience. I went to grad school. I did this. Man, I came back home to New York and it was crickets. I couldn't get nobody to respond to my email, text messages and stuff like that. But things work out in the background, and then again, you lean on your connections, lean on your network. And all it takes is one, opportunity, one ball to bounce your way, and then it might be the best opportunity at that time. And I roll into body armor, and then I look back, that was one of my best, professional periods of my life. So, what you're saying is extremely on point in terms of, staying the course and not taking no, as your final answer, but kind of to continue to fight on.
And to that point about you, like no one, like you thinking like it's just gonna go like this. Like I graduate Georgetown and like I'm gonna have opportunities. Like I thought like, oh, I got this internship with Creative Control TV. Like I'm gonna just get like I still got a bunch of no's after. Like even after that, like it took me a while to really cement myself like in the industry, right? So like even after that, like I didn't get another internship nowhere. I literally started working at a dental insurance company, like turning pages, because I was like, I'm in college, I need some money, I'm not getting no internships right now, and like I did that for like 15 months, 16 months, like no marketing background, just like working in dental insurance, taking classes, and being like, damn, like one day I gotta figure out how to break in, and like thinking like it might not happen at this point. Like I don't have 2 years done gone by without an internship. And one day I just get a call from like Viacom to interview for a position because I done applied there so many times. They probably was like, why you stopped applying? And
Right.
they
Where
reached
you
out to
been?
me. Yeah, like they really reached out to me. Like that's how crazy it was. I had applied to Viacom so many different internships. And and then the following week, I applied to an internship with Damon John's marketing group. Damon John from the Shark Group. I
Yeah.
mean, from Shark Tank, his marketing company called Shark Group. And like next thing you know, I got 2 internship opportunities in front of me after like 16 months of nothing. You know what I mean? And that's where things really started to take off. Because once I had those 2 kind of opportunities, I ended up going with the Shark Group. Then I parlayed that into another internship. And from there, that internship got me a full-time hire at the company I was working at.
No, that's I mean, that's the story, man. That's really how you do it.
Right.
So we talked about gaining that experience, obviously creating your own portfolio, understanding and learning, getting the reps of getting the no's, and then finally, getting accepted and getting roles and landing spots and opportunities. Before we get into, the 2K League, what was kind of like your first foray into, sports and entertainment? Like, how did you really get into that, then to ultimately finesse into, NBA 2K League?
Yeah. So after interning with Damon John at the Shark Group, I got an internship at a place called Lead Dog Marketing Group, which was like a sports marketing agency. And they had just got acquired by CSM, which is CSM Sports and Entertainment, which is a global agency, headquartered in London, offices in New York, Spain, like all over the world, with a plethora of agencies. And now I'm interning here as a business development intern, trying to figure out like what is my role here, like helping them with pitch decks, trying to bring in new clients, doing whatever I could there. In my last semester in college, knowing like I'm not trying to go into like the job market trying to get a job after this semester. Like I'm trying to leave this internship with
something job. Right. You want something right there.
I want them to be like, yo, we need you. So I worked on pitches like Square. They were trying to get into sports and some festival stuff. And there was a couple other clients. I forget during who else I worked on during my internship. But essentially, I would kind of be the guy who, like, if they needed something specific on basketball, they knew that they could tap into my brain, or if they needed something specific on like culture, right? Like who are the right influencers, what are the right events to be at, like who are the right people to talk. Like they knew that like I can bring an idea. So while my internship happened, they ended up creating the creative strategy department, and I kind of just like moved into that for my full-time role. And from there, it was like, Overtime was a client we would pitch on, and I would be able to work on like projects like that when Overtime was still bubbling, and they were creating the Overtime takeover. I would be working on like a lot of sports projects. So Overtime, TikTok wanted to get into like college students and around the March Madness, so I would work on that project. And then G League, I worked on that. We didn't win the project, but like those are the type of things I would work on, their marketing campaign. And then ultimately my big break was Hisense. During 2020, Hisense became a client of ours, and they really wanted to get into sports. They had a partnership with Dwayne Wade as a sponsor and endorser, and they wanted to do a social media campaign. And they were like, we don't have an NBA partnership, but like, how can we activate around the NBA? And it just so, the NBA bubble was coming back, and we just had this. I was able to, at this time, I'd been 2-3 years into my career. I was a manager. So now I'm leading projects, and I'm not like, doing, I'm not the coordinator. So now I'm like coming up with the ideas and the strategy. And that was one of those things where like I was able to, develop the social media campaign and figure out how do we, activate without the sponsorship. And we came up with this really cool campaign that involved Dwayne Wade, Blake Griffin, a few other NBA players. And really help Hisense break into the sports market as a Chinese TV manufacturer, because it's their first time. And then it went so well that they was like, yo, can we do this for football season? And so I got to do that again and work with Rob Gronkowski from there. And then that, again, that led to like some award recognition for the campaign and myself individually. And then I also got to work on HBO's Winning Time, the series about the 1980s Lakers, Magic Johnson and them, which is super fun for me. And like from there, that's when I was like, really enjoyed this, but was looking for a new opportunity and was able to make my way to the NBA.
Yo, so that's a big piece right there. Obviously, all the dope stuff you did, Winning Time, getting the recognition and working on projects from the NBA to the NFL, major. But in a real key piece is in terms of career and professional development trajectory is knowing when, all right, it's time for the next,
Right.
opportunity. It's time for the next jump. What was that like in your head? Like, what was it that you knew that, you were ready for the next thing? You had graduated from, all the accomplishments that you've done from those previous platforms, and now you're for the next.
I think it's just honestly it's a lot of things. One, I think internally, like I'm just always trying to stay motivated and like trying to find a new challenge and something to do. I think also just like working there, I loved working at CSM. I have nothing but amazing things to say. But like I was working with people who had worked there for so long that it felt like after a while, like they were just teaching me all the things that like they've worked, they've only learned there. And I wanted to learn from different people as well. Like I'm the type of person who wants to just always learn. And I just, I feel like the more people I can learn from, the more I can add to my toolbox and just continue to like be more well-rounded. And then lastly, like I just had a transparent conversation with the person who led the creative strategy team. And he was like, look, social media is never going to be like the bread and butter of this agency. We're experiential marketing agency. Social media briefs come in once in a while. And sometimes social media is a part of a brief. It's a small part, and we can always put you on that. But he also could tell that I wasn't being fulfilled in like working on experiential marketing. And he was like, look, this is just never going to be the number one thing. And that transparent conversation let me know like I needed to find opportunities where I wanted to work on social media full-time and content full-time. And then just the right opportunity just happened to come at a time where I was looking. And like, of course, like I said, I played basketball. You see something, an opportunity at the NBA, like it was a no-brainer to at least try to get that position.
And you saw the trajectory of the business, of the industry moving more towards social, whatever platforms it are, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, what have you. You saw that next step and that next foray into social media and that platform being a world of itself, and it was the right time to make that jump. So timing is key, is everything as well. So no, salute to you for recognizing that, and definitely a good life lesson professionally and personally as well. So you make that transition, you get you see the opportunity within the NBA and in the 2K League. For those that are unfamiliar with the 2K League, let us know how that works with the NBA, and just give us a glimpse into your role right now with that.
Yeah, so the NBA2K League, it's funny because there's always a big educational part for people learning about the NBA2K League. But obviously, everyone knows the NBA, and then there's Take-Two Interactive, who creates the NBA2K video game because they licensed the name from the NBA. They came together to create a joint venture called the NBA2K League, which is a professional esports league for people competing in NBA 2K. So the top players in the world who are elite at NBA 2K are drafted onto teams. So drafted at Knicks gaming or Lakers gaming, and then they're able to make they get a salary, they're paid for 6 months, And then each tournament, we have, I think, 8 tournaments in our season. And there's a prize pool for each tournament. So the total prize pool for the entire season is $2.5 million. And then each tournament, a prize pool can be $150,000, or it could be $250,000, or what the playoffs for 5v5 is $1 million, which gets broken out, but the winner gets 500K. So it's a growing esports league with the top NBA2K players in the world.
So again, another leap into an opportunity that was right on time. And obviously, with the pandemic, people were inside more, people were working from home more. I mean, shit, I even picked up Call of Duty, during the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? I was online for a little bit, Madden, stuff like that too. That, kind of coincided with the rise in esports and gaming and stuff like that as well. Another case of right time, right place. What was that like in terms of being there during that rush of, esports and gaming and that rise with that? Because obviously it was beyond just playing it. It became a business. Arenas are being sold out to play these games. Brand partnerships are being integrated as well. So, how did that look from a business standpoint as well?
Yeah, for me, externally coming in, I was just like, it was a no-brainer because NBA 2K is such a popular game. 2 million active daily people play the game every day, right? So there's a big user base there. There's a big fan base for the game. And then trying to figure out how to get that to people watching, right? So from the outset, I'm looking at esports and saying like, the year before I joined, they're playing, because no sports are being played in 2020, they're playing their games on ESPN. So like that already telling me like there is appetite for this by larger media companies, right? Like, obviously you couldn't play games in arenas, but you can still play esports online and people can still watch that. And ESPN is like, yo, we'll air that, we'll broadcast that. Like, we don't got NBA games. Like, so like that helped. I realized like, okay, like this thing is bubbling. It's not at its apex yet, but it's bubbling, and I'm down to get in on the ground floor. And I'm just looking at, how many young kids are not watching TV and are playing games on their phone or on Twitch, right? We stream our broadcast on Twitch, and that's one of the biggest platforms right now online for people to watch content. So I was just looking at it like, man, from a business standpoint, this thing still has a lot of room to grow. And we're only going to be in our 7th season in 2024. So again, still very early in its life cycle. And I was just looking at it like, yeah, like there's a lot of opportunity here. And it's just going to take people to kind of help understand and learn about the industry, because, the esports industry is super immature. It needs to grow. It needs to have its moment yet. It needs to kind of understand what it is. And excuse me, people around it would need to kind of understand what it is. And then, once that happens, media and brands will sort of be able to see, like, I can target a specific audience and work with them, right? Like, we have the 18 to 24-year-old audience, right? They play video games. They watch other people play video games. They want to learn how to get better at video games. So, once a brand like Gatorade is like, yo, we want to talk to this audience and you guys have them, that starts to infuse money. And once that starts to infuse money, the pots grow. Once the pot grows, people are like, oh, I can make more money. I want to continue to do this. Like, this is an opportunity for me. Then the media exposure grows. So I think it's all just kind of like at its very early life cycle. And as more of that continues to happen, like, I think you'll see it bubbling for sure.
I mean, you talked about the people that play the games, and some of them are even considered professionals after a couple of years. They're doing their thing, making a killing, making a lot of money, almost like a version of NIL, but just for video game playing. But also, you had NBA, you had professionals playing, the games as well. NBA ball players that, play 2K day in and day out, they're getting in on the action, they're twitching, they're streaming, they're doing their thing too. So a lot of it, obviously still going on now, but a lot of it was a heightened awareness with the brands that you mentioned, with the partnerships, and then also with the talent infusion that's coming in and really getting into action as well, was a huge piece too. So definitely some dope stuff. Curious about, some highlights. I know you guys had some dope events over the summer, I believe. So anything that you could share, just talking about any rollouts or any notable projects that you were a part of as well.
Yeah, man, I'm super proud of the work that the social media team has done. Small team, as you can imagine, it's a startup. The league operates like a startup. So
People forget
um,
that though. That's a great point. It is a startup environment. Like people
yeah,
think NBA no,
yeah.
it's
No, it's
every
a, it's a it's a 21 person league. The social media team is, 3 people. One is a contractor. So like it's still very much a startup environment. And what I'm most proud of is like in my first year there, views grew 400% on across social media on the board. So we went from 11.5 million views the year before I joined to 67 million views after the year I joined. And then this past season, we went from 67 million views to 109 million views. So to me, like that to me is like, I'm so proud of the team just for like being able to say like we gonna put together a strategy and then we gonna go out and execute on that strategy, to help grow this, right? Like that's what you need. You need to help grow this in some way. And like to me, that's a direct impact, um, of like the work and showing like there is a bigger fan base that we can reach. We just kind of got to like continue to create the content, help understand who that audience is that we're trying to reach, and then help broaden it a little bit. Right now it's very specific to the top 1%, 5% of the players, but like how can we get more of the fan base interested? So I think that's one of the things I'm super proud of is just like the performance increase year over year for us. And then I think, we're starting to see just like more exciting events happen, at the 2K League. I think in my seasons here, the best event we've ever had just happened. We did an NBA 2K League All-Star game inside the NBA headquarters in New York. It was crazy. We took over 2 floors. We built out a stage, and players competed. We had a invited guest list. It was packed. We literally turned away people, which was crazy. And then guys were competing, on top of a big screen inside the NBA office. It was crazy. And yeah, guys went home with prize money. We awarded MVPs that night, sixth man of the year, all that kind of stuff. Not sixth man, excuse me, most improved defensive player of the year, all that, rookie of the year, all that kind of stuff. So I think it was a super exciting event, and things that were, one of those things that we're trying to see more of, hopefully in the future.
Man, I've seen some of the prize money, man. So I might have to get my 2K skills up a little bit because y'all
Yeah,
give money. So
yeah,
no,
I'm
super dope, super dope, man. We'll wrap up shortly, but want to first get your ideas on the outlook of not only the sports and entertainment industry, but as it pertains to social media and content creation and stuff like that. What do you see as like the next foray within the next 5-10 years for social within the sports media landscape as well?
Yeah, I think sports media and social media is at an interesting point right now. I think what you see in sports is a lot of, people building out the personalities of, whether that's the creators, but like the athletes on the field, right? Obviously, we've seen a lot of athletes, uh, create their own podcasts, create their own shows, either whether they're retired or they're current athletes. Um, and I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see a lot more brand equity and investment equity from players, not just like, in their own platforms, but being able to jump into kind of like ownership of just like the sports teams, right? Like, and we've already begun to see that, right? Like some of the top players are doing it, but I think you're going to see more players across the board kind of get into it. And I think like everything, right? Like we've seen, um, women's sports increase in media exposure, which thankfully it is happening because they're some of the top athletes.
Right.
But I think you're going to see, and especially basketball, the WNBA, they've had a great moment, and I'm happy that people are starting to really invest in them. But I think you're going to see more people invest into other sports, right? Like, pickleball is growing, and there's the Olympics just added a couple of sports I saw to
Like
that to
football.
their list. There you go, flag football, right? So I think what you're going to see is like people are understanding like, all right, it don't have to be one of the top 4 major sports leagues in the US to talk to people. It doesn't have to be football, basketball, baseball, hockey, right? You can, if you want to reach people, it actually kind of is smarter to invest a smaller amount of money in a specific group, because if you want to talk to a particular audience. Maybe the handball league has that audience where like you can do a lot more custom, you can do a lot more investment there, whether you're a brand or a media or a creator, and that might go a long way. I think we've seen it in the social media world where smaller creators, micro influencers are always like kind of, they get more engagement on their stuff because their audience is authentic versus like always working with like the biggest names or the biggest brands or the biggest leagues. It, they cast a wide net, but they don't always get like the hardcore people. So I think that's what you're going to see is just like a lot more of the emerging brands or leagues or creators kind of like make their way. And I'm hoping, and I don't know this, but I'm hoping that there's a new social media platform that kind of breaks the mold and like what we've seen. Twitter, now known as X, kind of isn't doing the same things that it used to do. Instagram and Meta are, I think, continuing to figure out really what their platforms are going to evolve into. TikTok has a stranglehold on the community right now, but there's always something legislative that they're talking about that might happen with them. But I think there's an opportunity right now for someone else to come into the social media space and really make some noise.
Yeah, definitely a lot of emerging platforms that are coming out there. You hear about Fan Base with Isaac Hayes, doing that. So talked about TikTok, Threads obviously is, trying to make, some noise as well too. So we'll be interested to see what the next couple of years look like, but that makes sense. Before we get into rapid fire real quick, any tips, advice to one, men and women trying to break into the industry, or specific insight into social media content strategy, stuff like that as well?
Yeah, I think, look, I just told my story. Like, one, I'm always gonna say like just keep going, keep trying. Like, and even when you get no's, just keep going. And even when you start and it goes in a different way, like keep going. I have a mantra that I've always told myself is like life doesn't always go as planned, but that's why it's worth living. Just think about any movie or book. If everything went in how it's supposed to go in the movie, then like it would be a boring movie. It would be a boring book. You're not supposed to, but those pitfalls help kind of tell the story and kind of help move you forward. So that's my mantra, and that's something I tell people like who's trying to break in or having a hard time. And then specifically for social media, I would say just like you have the power in your phone to kind of just do it. It takes a second, and um, you're watching content all day. That's the best way to learn. Like the best way for me to do my job is to be on TikTok for 15 minutes, to be on Twitter for an hour, to be on Instagram. Like, what is happening? What are people posting? All right. And then taking a second to analyze it, right? All right. Bleacher Report posts content like this. Why? What kind of engagement? Who are they looking to attract? Complex does something like this. All right. They're not sports, they're different, but like how are they still crossing over into culture and tapping into different things? XYZ creators is posting this type of content. How does that kind of layer up? Like, all right, they're posting a piece of content with a brand. How does that work? How is that different from their typical day-to-day content? So I think like if you really want to get into social media, it's about learning, and just like anything else, like look at the platforms. What are they doing? How are they changing? And then start creating. Like go out there, try something, make something, mess up, try again. Get some notes, ask people, and then you mentioned it earlier, build your network, reach out to people, and build those relationships so that like you can ask questions, and then as people get to know you, I'm sure what I've learned is like people are willing to help down the road.
No, that's spot on, man. Like you said, like you got to get reps, you got to get some bumps and bruises, and that way you learn. That's how experience is the best teacher. So definitely makes sense. Cool. We're gonna wrap up real quick, but I want to get into some good rapid fire real quick. So I hope you're ready.
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Favorite sports movie?
He Got Game.
Okay, I'm with you on that. Mount Rushmore NBA players.
I hate this question. This is going to be a lot of debate. I'm so over the debates, but Mount Rushmore, no order. MJ, Braun, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Magic.
Okay, all right. You got an old soul. I respect that. I respect that one. All right. favorite sports story or meeting.
Favorite sports story or meeting?
Yeah, if
Wow,
you
that's
met an athlete or some type
yeah,
of story or something like that.
yeah. Favorite sports story meeting. I'm sure there's one that I'm not thinking of, but the ones that come to mind for me right now is when I was like 11 years old, 10 years old, or something like that. I went to a USA basketball practice. They were practicing at John Jay. This might have been like 2003, I want to say. Um, T Mac, Allen Iverson, Richard Jefferson, Tim Duncan, a lot of those guys, maybe like 2002. And those guys were just so welcoming to have people like me around and just kind of like chop it up. And, I'm a kid running around. Like T Mac was my favorite player ever, Allen Iverson as well. And that was like an amazing experience for me as a kid, just kind of seeing those guys, seeing them be human beings and just like playing with us and like, you know, playing jokes on us, running around like that kind of stuff was really cool.
Dope. Okay, last one. NBA's finals matchup and the winner.
Great question. I think right now it's Nuggets versus Celtics in the finals. And I think the Nuggets go back to back, unfortunately.
Back to back. You
Hate
gotta
it.
respect the champs. Respect the champs.
I
Cool,
hate it.
man. Jamel, appreciate you again. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the jewels. You dropped a lot of gems, and hopefully, the future viewers and listeners will take heed to it as well. So keep pushing the culture forward. Appreciate you, man. And I'll speak to you soon.
Appreciate you having me on, brother. Later.